All right. So one uh, thing you have to determine when you're doing your plumbing design is in a situation where you're using a septic tank. That's if you're not using a sewer plant, you're not using sewage treatment plant. You're using a septic tank. You want to determine the depth of your septic tank. Of course, you know this. You know how to size your septic tank. Very simple. I teach that in my MEP design training. All right. So the first thing you want to do is you want to determine the furthest inspection chamber to your septic tank. And if you look at this, the plan view of this site layout, this is the furthest inspection chamber to my what septic tank. This is a manhole to the septic tank inlet. Okay. So let's take a measurement uh from here. Okay. The furthest inspection chamber to my septic tank. So this will have about 20 24 meters, okay, and this will have about another say 11 meters, so that's 35 meters, and we have another say 8 meters, 43 meters, and to the inlet we have about another say 2 meters, so that's about 45 meters from the furthest distance, that's the furthest inspection chamber to the septic tank inlet. We have 45 meters. So the first thing we want to do is determine the size of our septic tank. So let's say we're having 120, we have about 20 people using the septic tank. So 20 people. All right. So we already know that our septic tank is about 5.6 cubic meters. Okay, 5,600. So that's about 5.6 cubic meters. So if we want to determine the size of our septic tank, so let's say we want to have a, so it really depends on the space that you have. All right, so let's say with the space we have, we can get a width of say 1.5 meters, 1.5, and we can get the length of say 2.5 meters. Okay, and of course, you want your length to be more than your width, depends on the space you have. Then you can have your depth of say 1.5 meters. So we have about 5.6 cubic meters, which is the volume we're looking for. But one of the things we also have to determine is the invert level from the outlet of this inspection chamber to the invert level to the inlets of these uh, septic tank inspection, the last inspection chamber to the septic tank. Okay, because you need to have a sewer line that is self-cleansing. It means that if it is too steep, the water the liquid will outflow the solid, and if it is too flat, the velocity will not be enough for self-cleansing. You need a velocity of about 0.6 to 0.757 meters per second for you to have a self-cleansing pipe, a self-cleansing run. All right. So what you want to do is that since we need to determine the distance to the septic tank, which is we've determined about 45 meters, and we can use our Syntogen MEP design toolkit to determine the invert level at the level of the septic tank. So here is the Syntogen MEP design toolkit. Remember, we have our run length of about 45 meters. Our pipe size, let's say we're using 100 meter for the soil pipe. We're using a PVC pipe. Okay, so let's just use our zero for our start level. Okay, um then we click on calculate, and it's telling us that we're going to be losing 0.5 meters. Okay, let me explain that in my drawing. So let's use a kind of an elevation to explain that. So let's say this is our septic tank. This is our move from the furthest inspection chamber to our septic tank. So let's say from our calculation, when we did our calculation, that we use 1.5 meters as our depth. So let's say this is 500, this is 500, this is 500. This is about 1.5 meters depth. By the time we move from this inspection chamber to this septic tank, we have lost 0.5 meters. Okay, so our volume has now actually become, instead of 1.5 by 2.5 by 1.5, what we are doing is 1.5 in reality by 2.5 by 1 meter, because I've lost, so that's 3.75, which is not enough for yearly dislodge according to our calculation. So that is how I determine the depth. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, instead of using 1.5 as my depth, I'm going to use 1.5 as my width by 2.5, and then add 0.5 that I lost here to my depth, which will now be, instead of 1.5, it will now be what, 2 meters of depth. So I have 7.5 cubic meters. So when I do construct my septic tank, I'm going to construct a volume of 7.5 meters, because I'm adding that 0.5 that I'm losing here, okay, to the volume of the septic tank. So by the time my pipe run gets here, even though I lost zero point 0.5, I still have my volume complete. So I have something like this now. I have another zero point 0.5 meters here. So I can just do this. So if let's assume this is zero point 0.5, this is zero point 0.5, this is zero point 0.5. Okay. So even though I lost zero point 0.5 here, I still have my what? 5.6 cubic meters in volume. That is how I try to determine the depth of my septic tank. I teach these and other things in my MEP design training. I teach you how to do your pump sizing, your water tank sizing, your, before I will teach HVAC too, HVAC, we teach HVAC and electrical design, uh, plumbing design, just like I'm describing to you here. We teach a lot of these things in our MEP design training. So if you like to learn MEP from scratch, I'm going to teach you from how to draw a line like this to full drawing full plumbing system, designing full electrical system, and designing full HVAC systems. uh, Join me in that webinar. I'm going to teach you from a beginner to an expert or from an expert to spectacular. I'll see you there.